everyone, Garrigus here, welcome back to the pit. It's Wednesday, and we all know what this means. Wednesday means some new intelligence reports straight out of Warlord Games' mouth. So, without further ado, let's see what they cooked for this week. Now, this is the second installment, so last time we took a look at the national special rules. Now it's the time for the weird and wonderful units. So, what do we have? We begin with the mighty Aerosan. Okay, it was already a pretty niche unit in second edition. I don't know how many of you do own an Aerosan model, or if you do, if you ever fielded it in a game. If so, let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. So basically, the stat line is very similar to that of the second edition. I had to check, I confess, because I couldn't really remember much. Basically, they lowered point costs a little bit. They added more coverage for the pintle-mounted LMG, and they actually reduced transport capacity to 4 men with skis rather than the 5 it had in second edition. Okay, it's an uniquely Soviet machine designed for one thing and one thing only, moving across snowy ground at high speed. It's quite literally a sled filled with an engine and pusher propeller carrying a driver and a gunner with a single light machine gun. Perfect for traversing the vast empty spaces of Russia's interior during the winter. The Soviet army put them to good use in both transport and reconnaissance roles. So we have the Aerosan. Wow, cool. In bolt action terms, it's a truly weird beast, moving as a wheeled vehicle but only on snow and ice. While this does mean it's unlikely to see much use outside of games where you know you'll be playing on a suitable table, and it's not something to be sneezed on. If there's a snowy table at your club, make sure you've got one to hand. The look on your opponent's face will be worth it. Oh, and did we mention it can transport sky troops by towing them behind it? Oh, so awesome. Go grab that model immediately. And by the way, look at the caption. Look at it. Just look at it. Who doesn't want one? Okay, I confess, I do not want one. Anyway, sticking with the vehicle theme, we got a T-34/76. Surely some mistake. There's nothing weird about the iconic Soviet medium tank. This isn't just any old T-34 though. Joining the main Armies of roster for 3rd edition is the Tractor Factory T-34. Originally introduced in the Stalingrad campaign book back in 2nd edition. Yep, it was, by the way, one of the best, probably, campaign books ever released for 2nd edition. These ramshackle machines pack a punch at a relatively low points cost, but come with a few drawbacks, courtesy of their finished or hastily repaired nature. Whether you're risking extra damage with hastily repair, judging ranges by eye with no optics, or trying to get your factory worker crew to work together, the Tractor Factory T-34 guarantees some wonderfully bonkers fun. It's not to be underestimated though, it's still got a 9+ damage value and a medium anti-tank gun. And at only 140 points, you can rush plenty of them to the front line. Okay, now basically what do these rules mean? Again, for a little bit of context, as mentioned, these T-34s were introduced in the Stalingrad campaign book because it's an historical fact that there was this tractor factory which was actually working on T-34s during the siege of Stalingrad, and they basically they didn't even finish building them, and they just rushed it literally on the front line outside of the gate of the factory. So, in context of a Stalingrad battle, it's absolutely super fitting. And by the way, when we organized last year our Stalingrad weekend, I will add the link in the description below. We did have tractor factory T-34s because they were absolutely on point in that moment. Outside of Stalingrad, though, I don't know. By the way, they are also period limited to mid-war because that is literally just when they existed, because there was no point usually in rushing out tanks that were not completed or not repaired or whatever. So again, it's basically a fluff choice. So no optics means that the main gun suffers an additional -1 to hit modifier. And by the way, since you can only buy them inexperienced at 140 points, so you already suffer the -1 to hit for being inexperienced. If you add an additional -1, it means that you will be hitting on 6s if stationary, unless the opponent is at super close range. So, I don't know. I feel this is just a filler entry. Again, don't get me wrong, it's iconic. It's not wrong for it to be in the book, but it's nothing, again, really worth mentioning in my opinion. Anyway, back to the special rules. If you don't want no optics, you can always take hastily repaired. Some knocked out T-34s were towed in to receive only the most rudimentary of repairs and then were sent back out to fight. Whenever this vehicle would suffer superficial damage, it instead suffers full damage. Again, it means that basically no superficial hits, just full damage, which technically means that if you assault one, you can destroy one even without anti-tank grenades. Not that anyone takes anti-tank grenades anyway. Last, you could have the factory worker crew. With a shortage of tank crews available, some factory workers climbed into the tanks they just built and drove them into battle themselves. Without proper training, however, completing even simple maneuvers could be a challenge. This unit must pass an order test to perform any action, even if it has no pin markers, which isn't great when you already have an inexperienced crew. So it's a sort of one-man turret, only that applies to everything. Okay. So again, it's a very, very niche choice. I wouldn't like for it to spring around in battles that are not Stalingrad, because it's really, really just a Stalingrad thing. And last, we have finally we got what's becoming a bit of a tradition in these weird and wonderful articles: a funky anti-tank launcher in the form of the Ampolumet. What you do if you got an enemy tank bearing down on you and no anti-tank to hand? Lob a glass shell full of white phosphorus and sulfur at it, of course. The Ampolumet is an unusual but surprisingly effective bit of kit on the tabletop. 40 points at regular to chuck a 2 inches template out to 24 inches isn't bad at all, but that's all relatively normal. The ability to set a vehicle on fire with a 6, though, that's just good fun. It doesn't matter how big or small, if you get a hit and roll a 6, that vehicle crew is taking that morale check or running for the hills. The Ampolumet is arguably the best of the weird, early or last-ditch anti-tank guns, and it looks suitably peculiar as well. Okay, now, I've had the chance to actually play with Ampolumets, because if you looked at my army showcase video about my Russian forces, you notice that I have like 2 or 3 Polomets. They are pretty decent, honestly. They are sort of a poor man's mortar because they are still are HE2, which for 40 point is not even bad. Plus, there's also the ability to just possibly set vehicles on fire. It's decent. This is probably, in my opinion, the best mix of something weird but also usable, unlike these other 2 examples, which are just kind of gross in my opinion. In any case, neither of these 3 entries that we've seen today are something new. Now, in previous articles for previous books, we've always said something that was really, really new, for good or for bad. In this case, they are just old or recycled entries in case of the Tractor Factory T-34. And so this is today's news. These are the weird and wonderful units, some of the weird and wonderful units that we are going to see in our Armies of the Soviet Union book, which is gonna hit the shelf again, it's a couple of months, so we still have time. We just are barely out of release of Armies of Great Britain, so there is still time. There will be probably, again in 2 weeks, one more article about old friends, if they keep the same schedule. But anyway, this is it for today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.